Hi and welcome back to Bill's Cichlid Room. Well, I put a post up on YouTube a couple of weeks ago asking if anyone had any questions they wanted to ask me. I'd do a Q&A. So time's come to actually do the video on it. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. So I hope you enjoy. Well, hi Bill, and thanks for asking me to ask you these questions that the subscribers on YouTube have actually put to you. So, hope you don't mind, but I'll read out the person's name and the question they asked, and I'm sure Bill here will do his very best to answer the questions. So the first question we've got is from Andrew Grimwood. He asks, what got you into fish keeping, and what other hobbies do you have? Well, thanks for the question, Andrew. It's actually two questions, not one, isn't it? But the first one, how did I get into fish keeping? Well, I've been keeping fish since I was about 7 or 8 years old. What it was, my uncle actually had a fish tank. It was a 2-foot fish tank, one of those angle-ironed ones with the glass that was actually putty inside, and the bottom was actually the slate. So I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I used to spend Saturdays with my uncle. So I was quite fascinated with the fish, as you can imagine. So we used to go out on a Saturday afternoon to local shops in Liverpool, mainly the one on Smithdown Road, which I believe is still there, and there was one in the city centre called City Pets, which was in St John's Precinct, which is the big tower in Liverpool, the Radio City Tower there is now. So yeah, we used to go out there on a Saturday afternoon. And it got to the stage where I was actually picking the fish that we had. So it was just like a community fish. So all kinds, guppies, black mollies, like you name it. And like we probably kept it at one time. I did remember having some coolie loaches as well, which I was fascinated with in the shop. Got them home, put them in the tank. They went straight behind the rocks at the back. And it must have been about 6 months since I seen them. So yeah, that was me introduction to fish keeping. Not long after that, I actually got a 2-foot tank at home. I got it for Christmas when I was 8 years old. And my primary school as well actually got a tank in their reception. I showed an interest in that, and before too long I was looking after that as well in school. So yeah, there was 3 tanks I was actually running when I was 8 years old. So yeah, that's how I got into the fish keeping hobby. So I'll do a more in-depth video on this in the next couple of months, how I got into the hobby and what my journey was from the very beginning when I was 7 or 8 years old, right up until when I built the fish room, started the YouTube channel, and how I am today. So the second part of the question, what other hobbies have I got? Those that know me will know I've been playing guitar since I was about 14 years old. So I've been a lead guitarist in a local cover band in Liverpool called the Dirty Macs. So we've been together now about 23, 24 years. So yeah, but we don't get out as often as we used to. But yeah, we played all the pubs, all the clubs and everything all around Liverpool, weddings, that sort of thing. So we have actually got a YouTube channel. There's not been anything put on it for a number of years. But yeah, the YouTube channel is called the Dirty Macs. So if you head on over there. The other thing as well, if you pay close attention to some of the videos I do, like I did one a couple of weeks ago, the species profile on the Real Heros caeruleus. The background music, it's actually me playing. So yeah, if you keep an ear open for that, you will spot them on a few videos. So thanks for the questions, Andrew. Well, thanks for that answer, Bill, and thank you to Andrew for asking the question. So the second question is from Liam Walters. He asks, what's the biggest mishap you've had in the fish room and in fish keeping in general? Well, thanks for the question, Liam. The biggest mishap, I've 2 spring to mind actually, and they were both when I not long set up the fish room. So I was actually running the fish room on a centralised system, and what had happened, I had a planted tank and some snails come in on the plants. So they were these type of snails, if you can see them, like the trumpet shaped ones. And what actually happened, it was on a centralised system, and I had the water going into the tanks through one of these. So it had a tap on the the top so you can actually adjust the water flow if you needed to. But what was happening is the snails were actually getting stuck in the top, if you can see, and stopping the water from going into the tank. So yeah, it was a nightmare to keep on top of it. You had to go along every day or two and try and make sure that everything was still working, because basically it's your filterized system. So yeah, the couple of mishaps with that was if you didn't spot it or whatever, so you went a few days without any filtration in the tank at all. So that was one of the mishaps. Another mishap, I don't know whether you can see on the tanks, they were actually, all the tanks were drilled, so just here. But what would happen is if you lost the fish, the water would actually flow, and like that's where the water come out back into the sump system, and then back up through a pump and back into the tanks. But if you lost the fish, it could actually block the water going back out the tank. But of course you've got more water continuously coming into the tank through the system. And what I had on the sump, it was actually plumbed up to the mains, so when the water level in the sump dropped, the fresh water would come in. So what had happened is a fish had died, it blocked up the overflow going back out, but more water was coming in. It happened, it must have been early in the morning. I'd been at work all day, and when I come in of the evening, the cold water had been going into the system all day. And on the system at the time, it was 12 tanks, so it was 8 4-foot tanks and 4 3-foot tanks. So they'd had cold water going in it all day, and I actually lost most of the fish. I think the water temperature had dropped down to about 45-50 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, that was a big mishap. One of the reasons why I don't run the fish room on a centralised system anymore. The other reason as well is I got some fish once, going back about 20 years ago, and they actually come in with a disease. We didn't actually know what the disease was, but it looked like white spot. It was actually getting called Singapore velvet at the time. But what would happen is, in the centralised system, if you've got disease in one tank, it quickly spreads throughout all the tanks. And at the time I had quite a lot of rare cichlids that I was breeding. Like the redhead, the tapajast, they'd only just come into the country, and I was doing really well breeding those. So I must have had about 150 growing on, and with this disease I lost a lot. So I lost basically all the fish that I had in 12 tanks. So yeah, that was a big mishap. Yeah, so much so I almost closed down the fish room at that stage. I was devastated for like months and months. But what would happen is you'd have a couple of fish survive, but whenever you put a new fish into the system, it would catch it. So this went on for, it must have been nearly 12 months. So what I had to do in the end is close it all down, disinfect all the tanks, all the sump system, and basically start again. But yeah, that was probably the biggest mishap that I've had. So yeah, it happens to everybody. Well, I hope we can all relate to that answer. I'm sure everybody does have the mishaps. When you're keeping so many tanks, you probably have more than most that only keep 1 or 2 tanks. But yeah, it's onwards and upwards. Keep your head up and keep going. So the third question I've got is from my good friend Paul Needham, also known as Big Fish Lad. Go out and check his channel out if you haven't already. The question that he asks is, which fish do you despise the most and why? So typical Paul, asking really difficult questions, but here we go, Bill. Do your best to answer it. So thanks for this question, Paul. Which fish do I despise the most and why? Despise is like quite a harsh word, really. I mean, all fish, like all animals, really. You can't really despise them. If you're a fish keeper, fish lover, you do like most fish. But One of the ones that when I was younger, about 8 years old, and actually keeping fish in the community, setting a little 2-foot tank, I was actually doing a lot of breeding of live bearers, so just the simple ones like guppies, swordtails, black mollies. So what I used to do is you'd wait for the female to get quite fat, you'd put her in one of these little breeding tanks stuck on the side of the tank, like inside the tank, wait for it to drop a fry, which fell down into the bottom bit there, take the female out, take that part out and let the fry grow on. Well, I actually had, it was black mollies that I'd been breeding them, so I must have had about 15 or 20 of them I was growing on in this little tank. And in the community setting, I actually had their tiger barbs, and one of the tiger barbs had jumped into the little tank and actually ate all the fry. So I was devastated, got rid of the tiger barbs straight away, and for years and years and years I never ever kept any tiger barbs. It sounds ridiculous, I know, and you know, it was my own fault, but you know, you're young, you don't know too much, all made up that you were actually breeding free fish. So yeah, so that was it when I was younger. But now I'm older and a bit more wiser, and cichlid keeper, as everybody knows, I suppose the fish that I've got no time for and I'd never keep, it's the hybrid fish. So it's fish like the flower horns, or all these like the bloom convicts or whatever they're called. So I've just got no time for them at all. I mean, the cichlids themselves, I think there's about 1,700 described species of cichlids, all different colours, sizes, aggression levels, from like, you know, Central America, South America, Africa, India, so from all over the world. So there's that much choice. I don't really see the point of actually making more. So, you know, it's not good for the fish themselves. I mean, you know, all the problems that they have with like the ones that they mix with Trimax and things, it's just, you know, it's no good at all. And then all the trouble that you have these days with my devils, you know, there's just no reason for it. I know hybridization like does happen in the wild, well, that's fair enough, you know, you can't really do anything to control that, but to deliberately sort of breed something just to make a new fish, just for the sake of it, really, yeah, I've got no time for it. And being a member of the fish clubs as well, obviously it is something that we don't promote. Like in the auctions, we don't let any hybrids into the auctions, so we do everything we can not to promote them. So hope that answers your question, Paul. So when I was younger, it was tiger barbs, but nowadays it's hybrid fish, particularly flower horns. So on to the next one. So again, thanks Paul for the question. Hope you like the answer. The next question we've got, question number 4, is from a subscriber called Fish Love. How do you remove fry for growing out? So thanks for the question, Fish Love. I have done a video in the past on raising baby cichlids, but I think I concentrated more on feeding them and trying to get some growth in them. But yeah, it's a great question. Like you've sort of seen in videos over the years that I've been doing, I do tend to keep cichlids in like more of a community setting. Sometimes I do just have a pair in the tank, like if you've seen the video I did about a week ago, I've actually set some up at the moment, so I've got 4 pairs at the moment, and apart from a couple of diver fish, it's only them in the tank. But yeah, generally, like what I do is it's a community setting, so if you've got a spawning in there, how do you get the fish out? So what I tend to do is I wait for them to be wrigglers, and then I just use a siphon tube, this one to be precise. So it's got a rigid part, so you can actually position it and like get more control over siphoning the fry out. So yeah, you siphon them out into like a small bucket, a little jar, something like that. And then I've got the smaller tanks that I actually put them into, and like feed them like baby brine shrimp, powdered flake food, until they get to the size where you can actually feed them like normal size flake food after a couple of months. So yeah, that's what I do. So I use the siphon tube to catch them, transfer them over into a smaller tank. What I normally do when I do that as well, the smaller tank, I'll actually fill it up with water out of the tank that they were spawned in, so that there's no difference in water chemistry, just in case that has an effect on them. So yeah, hope that makes sense, and thanks for the question. So the fifth question we've got is another one from Liam Walters. He asks, what fish tank do you envy the most? The one you look at and think, I wish that it was mine. What a great question, Bill. So thanks for the second question, Liam. So what fish tank do I envy the most and wish that it was mine? Well, if you go to any public aquarium, you see massive tanks in there. I remember one time going to Boat Museum with a friend of mine, Pete Liptrot, is actually the curator in there, and he was doing like a program at the time on breeding Madagascan cichlids, particularly the Melon Rambo, and I was fascinated with these fish in the tank. As you know, I've actually got like a small group of them at the moment, like little tiny ones. But yeah, I was fascinated with these fish. They were in like a massive tank in Bolton Aquarium, and yeah, I was fascinated with them. But that's public aquariums. So actually in somebody's house, the one that I was most fascinated with, again, it was a large tank. It was a friend of mine, Ian Jordan, who used to run Oddball Express, which is where I used to get a lot of fish from. He used to ship the fish over from Tangled Up in Cichlids in America. So he'd fish them over, and I'd go down to Leicester, which is where he was based, and pick the fish up. So yeah, it was about 2.5 hour drive, like there, and 2.5 hours back. But yeah, it was well worth it. But what he'd actually done is he'd built a massive tank in the conservatory. I can't remember the size of it. It was the biggest tank that I'd seen, to be fair. It wouldn't surprise me if it was about 12 foot. And the fish, the specimens that he kept in there, it was all the fish that I'd love to be able to keep. So it was your big Central American cichlids and catfish as well. So Ian had a soft spot for catfish. So I remember he had there like the tiger shovel nose. So it was pretty much like full grown. So that tank, it was fantastic. So whereas I have little rocks in my tank, he had big boulders in his. So yeah, it was probably the biggest tank even to this day that I've ever seen in anybody's house. I know it cost him a fortune, but yeah, that was fantastic. So yeah, I wish I wish that I had that tank. And another one was when I first got involved in fish clubs, and I went to like a friend's house who actually had a fish room. So I thought I had a fish room because I had like about 6 tanks in the room, and I had other tanks dotted around the house. But like he had a proper fish room. What it was a double garage that he'd converted, and he had about 60 or 70 tanks in there, all on a centralised system. But I'd never seen anything like it. Like it was like a shop, but just full of fish that he was keeping and breeding himself. So yeah, that was the inspiration for me, having a proper fish room. So it was not long after that that Keith actually helped me plan out the fish room and build it with me. So yeah, that was a long time ago. So yeah, I suppose I actually did get the fish room, but yeah, it was Ian Jordan's fish tank. It was fantastic. So thanks for the question, Liam. So the sixth question is from Ian Butterworth, long-time subscriber, actually started to attend the auctions not long ago, and I think he has a really good day out. So Ian's question: what effect does the energy crisis have on your hobby? Example, lowering the temperatures of the aquariums. So good question from Ian. So what's your answer, Bill? So thanks for the question, Ian. Those of you that watch me videos and that have been for quite a while will know, like in the UK, the energy crisis, well, all over the world, but like I can only really talk about the UK. So yeah, the cost of electricity, it went through the roof. So it's actually 2 or 3 times now per unit of what it was even 2 years ago. It's starting to settle down a little bit now, but yeah, it was getting out of control. Like when I first set up the fish room again, I think it was costing me about £60 a month to run the fish room, and that got up to like £200, something like that. It was ridiculous. So what I had to do, like the back part of last year, is actually start closing some tanks down. So I've actually got 3 of the big tanks with nothing in them at the moment, and the breeding tanks that I had, like 5 of those have been closed down. So I do hope once things settle down, if the energy prices come down again, I can actually start setting some of those up. They're still in situ, they've still got water in them. Yeah, so like that was the main like thing that I had to do. Obviously go over onto sponge filters as well in all the tanks, going onto the strip lighting, just anything that I could think of, insulating all the tanks, like on the bottoms, and the rack which is opposite me here, actually insulate all the back and sides of those as well, just anything to try and reduce like the energy down. I did actually experiment with turning the temperature down on all the tanks as well. The fish have all been like healthy, so the tanks are running, instead of running at 78 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, they're now running at like 76 to 78. But the only effect that's really had is that the fish aren't breeding as much anymore. So it is something that I'm going to have to think about, seeing as it is a big part of the hobby, for myself anyway, which is actually breeding fish and trying to grow them on and get them out into the hobby so everyone can share the species that I'm keeping. So yeah, that's the biggest effect really, but I know it's affecting everybody. I've had comments saying it's killing off the saltwater hobby. I've had loads of shops have like struggled, a couple of them have gone out of business. Yeah, it is a bit of a nightmare really, but hopefully, like with what's been happening, like worldwide prices, it's coming down again. I think it's going to be like the summer before it actually takes effect in the UK. But I think the best we can hope for this year is they actually stop going up and just stay the same as they are. So yeah, that's my answer, Ian. I've had to cut down some tanks and find cheaper ways of running what I have got. So the 7th question is from my good friend Kevin Hillier. Why do you keep killing the bean eye? So in all seriousness, Kevin is the guy who actually got me the latest pair of bean eye that I managed to kill within a couple of weeks. But Kevin has actually got a pair of bean eye. It's a breeding pair, so hopefully you'll get them breeding and I might be able to get some again someday in the future. But seriously, what he's asking is, would I ever get any really big tanks for some really big fish? Yeah, so thanks for that, Kevin. Yeah, the bean eye, just one of those species that I'm not having much luck with. I hope you'll get yours breeding and have all the success in the world with those. And if you do get some fry, you know where I am. So yeah, onto the serious question. Would I ever get like a big tank? Well, as you know, in the fish room, the biggest tanks that I've got down here are 4-foot tanks. The reason for it's the access down to the basement. I can't actually get anything bigger down here, so unless I actually built something down here like myself, I've got something to build it for me. Like 4 foot's about as big as I can actually get down here. I have had bigger tanks in the past. The biggest tank that I actually had, it was 2 meters, which is 6.5 foot. I had that in the kitchen upstairs. It was a fantastic tank. I used to actually keep it was arowanas and Oscars in it, and I had some like almost full-size bow-quartai in it. So yeah, I have kept them in the past. Would I in the future? Who knows? Like Steph has been talking about possibly getting another big tank for the kitchen, so like we may do in the future, but yeah, at the moment I've got no plans for it. Yeah, it does limit what fish you can keep, of course, like the big Amphilophus and everything, which, you know, I do love the Amphilophus species, but yeah, keeping anything more than a pair of like jaguars or something, like 4-foot tank is really a little bit too small for them. I have done it in the past and had success with it, but yeah, that's about all you can do. But like, because I'm limited on tanks, particularly like at the moment with the energy crisis and everything, like sort of giving a 4-foot tank over to like one pair of fish, it's real estate, isn't it? So yeah, will I in the future? Possibly. So watch this space. If I do, I'm sure I'll feature it on the channel. The next question is from Paul Needham again. What's your favourite fish shop and why? Thanks, Paul. So what's my favourite fish shop? Most of the fish shops that I go to, I like them for different reasons. There's Aqualife, the up and Leibold, which I go to quite often. They don't really keep many cichlids, Central American cichlids. Occasionally they have some in, but not too many. But yeah, I do like that shop. It's, as they say, it's run by hobbyists for hobbyists, so you always get good advice in there. The fish that they have are always in tip-top condition. But yeah, for Central American cichlids, they don't really keep that many. Another one not far from there, it's Maidenhead Aquatics in Wigan, which I've featured on the channel. All these shops I've featured on the channel in the past. I've done shop tours on them. But yeah, so Maidenhead Aquatics, so a good friend of mine, Dave, he works there. Again, they're always really helpful, got good advice. They do tend to get Central American cichlids in from time to time. They have got some big specimens in there, which I've actually featured on the channel. And I know Big Fish Lad, he's actually done a video on them as well. They got a pair of Dovi in there, and the various other ones. But yeah, they always have some nice big fish in there. So Central American cichlids, I have bought quite a few in there. The Cryptoeros spilius, I got those in there last year. So yeah, they're two of them. The ones that everyone expects me to say, Pier Aquatics, which again isn't too far from me. It's about an hour's drive away for me. Fantastic shop. Specialise in South American fish, predominantly L-number catfish. They have loads of L-number catfish in there. Most of them are wild caught. They do have South American cichlids in there as well. Again, some fantastic specimens in there. So yeah, I always like going there. Occasionally they have Central American, not too often. But yeah, I have bought loads of fish from there in the past. To be fair, I've not had much luck over the last 12 months with fish I've got there. I got the Uaru Ferdinand Lizette pair in there, which I didn't have much luck with. And the pale size cichlids, I got those in there. Actually had a wipeout in the tank, if you remember. But yeah, it's probably more down to me and quarantining fish than it is for Pier Aquatics. But yeah, that's one of my favourite places to go. You always see unusual stuff in there. The other one, of course, is Wharf Aquatics, which is a day out really for us. That's probably 2.5-3 hour drive away. But again, the fantastic people working in there. Good friend Graham, who always helps me out whenever I go, and it lets me know if they've got anything a bit more unusual coming in there. So yeah, it's Wharf Aquatics. So in the past, I have been right round the country really. Wholesale Tropicals in London, I've not been there for many years, but I used to love going down to London and visit that shop. Wildwoods as well on the way back. A couple of Maidenhead Aquatics dotted around the country. I'm not sure how many shops they have now, but they used to have about 30 or 40 of them dotted around the country. So wherever you were, you could always go into a Maidenhead Aquatics. So yeah, that's it. So what's my favourite shop at the moment? Probably Wharf Aquatics, to be fair. They always, whenever you go there, they've always got something that you've not seen before or not for a long time. Yeah, so Wharf Aquatics. So question number 9 is from my wife Steph. Why do you need so many fish tanks? Now I'm sure everybody's wife asks these questions, but what's your answer, Bill? Haha. So yeah, this is a bit of a joke question really. Those that know me and know Steph, Steph is actually a fish keeper herself. At one time, Steph was actually running about 40 tanks. So Steph was specialising in the African cichlids, mainly from Lake Tanganyika and a few from Lake Malawi. So yeah, she's really good with the African cichlids, with the harder water. So yeah, she'll mess around with the water and get the chemistry right. And yeah, she is like a really good fish keeper, probably better than myself, to be fair. Yeah, so why do I keep so many tanks? As I mentioned before, I'll do a video on how I got started in the hobby and what my journey's been. But yeah, in a nutshell, it's basically you get one tank, you start breeding fish, so you need another tank to grow the fry on, and then you see another pair of fish, so you need another tank to put those in. And yeah, if you're not too careful, before you know it, things get a bit out of hand. So yeah, that's probably why I need so many fish tanks, so many species of fish that you want to keep and try and breed. So the 10th and final question for this video, it's a question that I've been asked a number of times by various people, so it's not actually asked by one person in particular. But the question is, what other fish tube channels do you watch? So what other fish tube channels do I watch? Well, I actually watched loads and loads of them, to be fair. Yeah, I'd rather sit there watching fish videos than the telly most of the time. But the ones that I watch, obviously Big Fish Lad, that since I've been doing YouTube, he's become a real close friend, that always keeps me going with ideas for videos. But yeah, I do actually enjoy watching his videos and seeing his fish journey, comparing notes. So yeah, Big Fish Lad is probably the one that I watch the most. Another one that I enjoy watching, Chris Biggs, the Mad Aquarist. Yeah, so Chris, he's got a great personality, he is well known in the hobby. He goes around all over the world really doing talks as well. So yeah, he's got a really good way of actually providing the information. Yeah, not so sure on his creepy crawlies and the spiders, but yeah, thankfully he's actually he split his channel up now. So he's got the fish channel, and then he's got another channel for all his other critters that he's keeping. So yeah, Chris Biggs. Another one, of course, Andy Woods, fantastic channel, big American cichlids. He's not been putting many videos out over the last, say, 6 to 12 months for whatever reason. But yeah, whenever he puts one out, it's always like go straight to it and watch his videos. Yeah, I mean, he's keeping like all the big Central American cichlids. I mean, it's like he's got like Wolfie, his Doveye, which, you know, it's as big as his head, as he says himself. So yeah, I always enjoy watching Andy's channel. And I suppose that other ones, when I'm watching them, I do actually like to learn something, or see something that I can't actually see myself. So one of the channels I've been watching lately is a channel Below Water, and another one which is Hans van der Hoosen. So what those channels do, they actually go out into the wild. So they actually do videos of the fish that I'm keeping, like in the natural environment. So it's always fascinating to see what the setup is in the rivers for the fish that I'm keeping. So yeah, two fantastic channels. I'm just an honourable mention really. When I first started YouTube, one of the ones that I watched all the time and got loads of ideas of, it was Scott's channel, The King and Queen of Cichlids. Unfortunately, he's not doing them anymore. He's I'm not sure whether he's actually keeping fish anymore. But yeah, I used to love his channel. So yeah, occasionally I do still go back and watch his old videos, and like if there's anything that I'm thinking of keeping, or I've just got, and he's done like a species profile on them, always fantastic to watch. Well, thanks for letting me read out the questions, Bill. Thanks for the answers. Some really good, insightful answers there. If you've got any more questions, if you leave them in the comments, if I get enough, I'll actually do another video on this, a part 2, in a couple of months' time. So yeah, get your thinking caps on, anything that you want me to answer, and I'll see you all on the next video.